Let it begin. We'll grill each other. Hey everybody, I'm Derek with Frontline Foam. Well, here with Pete. He's a designer of the Neutrino here, which is a really great build and great blaster. Pete just fairly recently released his version 2 of it, and as a overseas nerfer, he's in the UK. We figured it'd be interesting to interview him, ask him some questions about his nerf experience, what got him into the hobby, and it's really just interesting to meet other nerfers and talk to them and hear their stories. And so we're here with Pete. How's it over there?
I mean, we're going into winter now, so it's getting pretty dark. Games are kind of closing down a little bit, but yeah, good.
Pete, how long have you been in like the nerf hobby?
Oh, I want to say maybe since 2014, something like that. Do you know when the hammer shot or the rapid strike came out?
Yeah.
Just kind of before that, I would say. So yeah, pre that. So there was elite stuff was definitely out, but some of the cooler stuff that we've got today, not so much.
Okay. I mean, the rapid strike and hammer shot were definitely pretty big highlights, I think.
Yeah.
So what did you start out with those?
Yeah, so I actually started off with a fire strike and strong arm. So I'd never really heard about Nerf at all until I went to university. I went to actually go and visit an engineering friend when he was at university. He just had these 2 Nerf blasters. He had a Maverick and a strong arm. I'd never seen him before. I didn't know anything about Nerf. And we were just messing around in his halls. I thought it was amazing. But it was quite funny, really, because he had the strong arm and I had the Maverick, and I had no idea that there was a difference between N Strike and N Strike Elite. So he was definitely outperforming me with that. Mm-hmm. But after getting home, ordered a fire strike and a strong arm, as they seemed like good starter ones. Kind of got to a point where I was like, yeah, they're okay, but I'm sure they could do more. And just kind of that inquisitive nature, got on YouTube and had a little look around and saw that there were quite a few kits that you could drop in and things you could do to upgrade them. So I do really enjoy like taking things apart and putting them back together again and finding out how they work. But at the time, I thought the UK Nerf scene was pretty much non-existent. I didn't really know anything about it. I don't know if you know FDS or Foam Data Services from the UK. He basically set up the first game in Bristol.
That's actually pretty similar to how things, I guess, got started here in Utah as well. So it's kind of interesting how we can see how similar things can kind of develop no matter where you are in the world. So I think that's awesome. What do you do now? Like, what's your background? Are you married? Do you have kids? Are you in school? Or what do you do for work?
Still in school, kind of. I'm actually a teacher, science teacher. Recently got married in the summer. Yeah. And bought my own house about 3 years ago now. Moved in.
You said you like tinkering with things, but what kind of drew you and made you want to stay in the hobby, I guess?
I'd say I'd split the hobby into two things, which is like building, modding, or designing, and then playing as well. I'd say I was also quite a sporty individual, so I kind of see Nerf, or whatever we want to call this hobby now, as a game or a sport. So you had both kind of sides really kind of drawing me in. It's really fun that you can kind of do a sport, but you can go home and tinker and design your own stuff or mod your own things to have that like extra edge over your opponents or friends. So I think that's kind of what really drew me into it.
And I'm the same way, tinkering, engineering, building in the sport aspect, but then also being able to like modify and tinker your own equipment. That's so unique. What direction do you think the hobby is going? Like, you want to keep seeing people build things. You feel like the hobby is the same as it was, 6 or 7 years ago when you first joined, and how has it changed? And what is your thoughts on that?
I think what I'd like to see is like improved technology for hobbyists and like community shops. So at the moment, we're all using pretty much like FDM printers, but I know like SLA and SLS printers, like resin printers, are coming down in affordability. So it'd be really good to see the introduction of that for maybe your average hobbyist, or at least the shops first. And then I don't know how far it'll go, but kind of something on par with injection molding as well would be really cool.
When I started, it was mostly just PVC and wood. It was so hard to get your hands on something that was really expensive, or you had to really make it into your own thing, like make it.
Yeah.
Like, I've worked on this so long and you get to use it. And so now with we said the direction it's going is the hobby is growing almost faster than we can produce blasters for, and so we have companies that are in a dark zone who are kind of helping to open those gates for new people coming to the hobby. You mentioned you had one other project in the works. I can't help but ask.
I started on this, which is a RSCB shotgun. So darts get loaded into the tubes in the back. So each tube holds 9. Start to fill it up. And like a traditional RSCB, you need to obviously tip the blaster down. I need to do a little bit more testing because I have found that you can get away without tipping it down on some shots. So I don't know what's quite going on there. But it takes 9 in each tube, and there's a tube on each side. I've just got a seal. So I've taken pretty much the silhouette of like a leather gun, if you like. I haven't quite got the leather on here yet, but you can see this kind of nub is where it would fit. But it's a dead simple design, so it's just a Specs BZ inside. So actually the internals will be dead cheap. And the only moving part is the trigger, which is connected to the, if I flip it around this way, the MJV03, which is the valve. So air comes in up through the handle, literally goes through the valve. Specs BZ is housed in here, and that's pretty much the internals. So air flows up, you tip the blaster down, darts go past that air hole and seal the front of the barrel, pull the trigger, both come out, and then just tip down again and repeat. And although it's not all that powerful, because obviously you've got only one Specs BZ powering 2 darts rather than the normal one. So at the moment, I'm kind of tapping out about 170, 180 FPS, but I'm sure I could make it more efficient with a little bit more design. But just the amount of comments I got from people like, oh, what is that? That's awesome. It's like, like deadly in gameplay. You know, when you're shooting, especially with something like, I assume similar with the Milsig or the Neutrino, basically like a super core power blaster, you miss someone by like an inch. This one you just don't, because the other dart hits them. It's also pretty satisfying to be shooting 2 at once. And then in terms of stock, so a lot of people don't like remote line. So this one is currently remote line. It's definitely a prototype. I haven't got like a proper stock on it or anything. Plan is to have a bottle-on version, so that will fit within the stock. And then also, after the Milsig came out, I think CO2's got quite popular, and that's kind of why I built the microburst. Was I found an adapter which is very affordable, about £12 on eBay for a CO2 adapter to the Wolverine regulator. So I was also thinking of that, and that would fit in here really nicely without changing that kind of form factor. A few people asking already about like a just a pistol grip or whatever you call it with no stop on the back. But yeah, the front it's just monkey mod barrel cut in half, and then they thread in to the print at the front. But that's what's coming up next. So slightly less serious, but a little bit more fun.
That looks so fun. I know that there's a bit of a push for double barrel, like you have the 2nd degree caliber, and you've got some other like a 20-minute double skewer. And
yeah, I was gonna say the duo, whatever it's called.
Yeah, like I don't know why it's so appealing, but like a double-barreled shotgun is like a classic, I guess. And so I don't know. I'm very interested in that too. I've never really been I'm usually more of a practical nerfer, but when I get silly, I get pretty silly. Rose, did you have anything else to add or that you want to say?
If someone was new to designing a blaster, I would just say try and make something unique. I think there's no point trying to reinvent the wheel. So I really like the way in your recent video, kind of the announcement of the soon to be released Neutrino was that it was a cheaper semi-auto Milsig, which I really liked as a compliment. But I guess the unique bit of the Neutrino is that toolless disassembly. And with this one that I'm designing, yes, it's double barreled, which isn't entirely new, but it being RSCB and essentially having one moving part so both the pretty reliable platforms is kind of what I've been going for. So yeah, try and make something unique.
All right, well, thanks, Pete. I'll let you go, and I'm glad to be able to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to talk to you, and thanks for your support as well.
All right, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, thank you. See you.